Hey everyone, this is the last week of Dangerous Prayers. I'm bummed that it's almost over because this has been so powerful, but thank you for being a part of these. So far, we've said, we've prayed, God, search me, break me, send me, make me bold, and break my heart. And this week, this one that we're going to be talking about today is key to all of the others. It's, God, speak to me. Because if we can hear from God, it makes hearing the answers of all those other dangerous prayers much, much easier. Just like the last 5 weeks, we are going to be doing 3 different sections where we're going to be doing some teaching and then pausing it and having discussions. So let's jump in. Today, we're looking at 1 Samuel chapter 3. We see a young 11 or 12-year-old boy, Samuel, pray this dangerous prayer. He's living with the priest Eli at the time, and one night he hears a voice, and he assumes it's Eli, and so he goes to Eli and is like, "Yes, what's up? Did you have something for me?" And finally, after like 2 or 3 times of this, Eli and Samuel realize it's God, and it turns out that it was. And so Samuel, when he hears the voice of God the next time, he says this, he prays this: "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And it sounds so simple and not very dangerous, but when God speaks, it's important. And important things are not always easy. When God speaks, he will convict you, maybe of your sin. He will challenge you. He'll stretch you. He'll teach you to depend on him more. And these are not easy things. Some may even say that it's easier not to hear from God, but we need to hear from God. It is so important. Prayer is vital to a healthy relationship with God because prayer is communication with him. We have to be in communication with him if we want a relationship. No relationship can succeed without communication. And no communication is one-way communication. See, prayer is not just talking to God, but it's listening also. Too many times we just go through our lists of things and say, ask for this and God, do this for me, please. And then we sign off before we give God a chance to even speak to us. See, God wants to talk to you, and he does it in different ways. One way God speaks to me often is I go into the sanctuary at church here, and I pace back and forth, and I turn on instrumental music, so there's not any words distracting me or whatever. So I pace back and forth, and I've never heard an audible voice from God. But over the last couple of weeks, I've actually been praying, like, I want to hear an audible voice. You never know. It might happen. It'd be great. But how God speaks to me most of the time, in those situations especially, is he kind of just drops feelings and thoughts into my head. And when something feels like it's from God, I write it down. I take out my phone and write it down, or I have a piece of paper and I write it down. And sometimes I get 5 or 6 of those things while I'm praying for half an hour or so. And then after I'm done with that, I will look at my list and I'll pray over those things again. And if I feel like they really are from God, I act on them. Many of you have actually gotten text messages or phone calls or different things because of those times in prayer, because God says, hey, contact this person, see how they're doing, call this person, ask them this, So that's one way that God speaks to me. What are some different ways that God speaks to people? Let's talk about that for a minute in our groups. All right, God speaks in a lot of different ways, and he's speaking almost all the time. The question is really, are we listening? It's hard to really listen and to hear anything when there's so much going on. Think about the last time you were in a really busy place, whether it's a sporting event or a concert or a mall or something like that. It's really hard to hear someone when all this stuff is going on and there's all this noise. One of the main reasons we don't hear from God very often is because we don't take time to be still and to be silent before God. Here's a question, and it might hurt a little bit, so just get ready, okay? When is the last time that you watched Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus for an hour in a day? Today, maybe, or yesterday? It hasn't been too long, right? How about this? When's the last time you spent a good amount of time with God in your day? God wants to speak. We need to figure out how to be silent. Honestly, for me, I know how to be silent. I just need to do it more often, right? What I really want to do is create habits that will help me listen for him throughout my day. Like every time I get out of my car, I want that to be a trigger for me to stop and pray and listen for God's voice. As I'm getting ready in the morning, as I'm taking a shower, brushing my teeth, getting dressed, like I want that to be a trigger for me throughout that whole process. I want to be listening for God, what he has for me for that day. And I want to create those types of habits. So what do you need to do to make being silent before God happen in your life? Let's discuss that. All right, you want to know another reason why we don't hear from God as much as we want to? Good, because I'm going to tell you. I think he's tired of being ignored and disobeyed. I mean, I know I wouldn't want to keep talking to someone who never listened to what I have to say. I mean, why would you even ask God to speak to you if you weren't ready and willing to do what he's going to tell you to do, right? So that's our first step. What if you were praying this prayer right now, God, speak to me, and his response to you was, hey, remember what I told you to do last month? As soon as you do that, I'll give you something new. Think about that, right? That's kind of an ouch moment right there. It doesn't matter what he says. We should do it. Why? Because he's God and we are not. Simple as that. But God, what's going to happen, and this is going to impact, and why do you really want me to do this? Listen, stop. Stop asking all these questions. Stop asking for more details. You probably can't handle the details. You don't need to know the details. Just do what God has asked you to do by faith because you trust him, because he is God. We need to be ready and willing to act when God speaks. So, what are some of the things God might speak to us about? That's the question. Well, for me, right now, God is speaking to me about figuring out what's holding me back from sharing him more with people. He's been giving me some ideas on how to get involved more in the community so I can rub shoulders with more people. And so now I'm asking him to just open up those opportunities and for me to recognize those opportunities when they come so that I have a chance to share Jesus with people that I'm seeing out and about in different places. Okay? Question is, what are some things God speaks to people about? And what do you think he wants to speak to you about in this season? Let's have some discussion on that. If we can learn to hear from God, I mean, everything else just kind of falls into place. Think about it, right? You have a tough decision to make. God can help you, give you that answer if you're listening for him. You need to know how to raise your kids to follow Jesus. Listen, if you hear from God, he can help you, tell you what to do with your kids specifically. Or maybe you need someone to be there for you, to tell you that they love you and that they care about you. No one can do that better than the God who created you. So we need to learn to listen, to hear God, to say, speak to me, Lord. And if we take time to listen and we're ready and willing to do what he speaks to us about, I believe God will speak and we will hear him. This week, your challenge, of course, is to pray this prayer, speak to me. Pray, speak to me, God, and then write down whatever it is that you think he's speaking to you about, and then act on it. I just know that these dangerous prayers are really going to continue to change us. So thank you. Thank you so much for this past 6 weeks, for joining us to be a part of this. Prayer is vital to our relationship with Jesus, and dangerous prayers have to be a big part of our communication with God. Don't stop praying these prayers when this is all over. Please continue. Don't go back to living a safe, average life. Live dangerously.